Are you serious? Are you serious? Do you guys remember this? The Heaven's Gate cult. Oh, no, 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 no. Yes. Let me tell you all about that, guys, but let me put a shout out first, if you don't mind, for Noble Gold. Certainly, here's the hard truth. Here's the hard truth. Every 6 years, your dollar loses half its buying power. That's not good. That means your $100,000, if you had that in a 401k somewhere, be worth really about $50,000 in buying power by the year 2031. And you see, every time you go to the tank to fill up the tank of gas, every time you go to the grocery store, every time you go to pay bills, the taxes, the tariffs, whatever else might be out there, our buying power we're losing. The dollar is down with its currency value. But there is something that has stood the test of time. There is something that's been proven. It's a biblical currency. It is gold. It's an asset that holds its value over time. And that's why over at www.pastorpaulgold.com, that's www.pastorpaulgold.com, you can really take advantage of gold holding its value and going up, okay? It is continuing to go up, and it has been around longer than any other type of currency. It is the biblical currency. So check it out. Go to www.pastorpaulgold.com or call them on the phone at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. And tell them Pastor Paul sent you there. Okay, Heaven's Gate cult. Some of you might remember it. This guy, Marshall Applewhite. Really a strange one. And he got involved with another lady named Bonnie Nettles, and they collectively came together. They were all wrapped up in all kinds of different things, whether it was different types of religions and, Eastern mysticism, and they got involved with some New Age, and they got just a lot of stuff. And in the end, in their confused situation, they convinced themselves that they were the two witnesses. What? From the book of Revelation. Yet they weren't preaching the gospel, that's for sure. They were luring people into their cult to try to get them to come under their spell, if you will, of the aura of this confusing and luring and seductive spirit that convince people to abandon society, abandon family, abandon church, and all social settings. Basically, take on a life of celibacy. Even 7 of them were castrated. There was some women in the group and men, a very strange thing. And in the end, they end up committing suicide because they were catching the Hale-Bopp comet that was going by. And they said that was Heaven's Gate into heaven, the gate to heaven. That was the portal. That was their ride. And strange. We've done a great podcast on this. 2 of my sons, myself, B.C. Begley, and Paul Begley Jr., the 3 of us got together, show you a lot of footage, and talk about what happened, what caused this, what is the root cause, what is the concerns of people being drawn into what they think may be a religious setting that turns into an apocalyptic cult. Let me show you a little bit. Let me share a little bit of this right now. 1 second here. Let's see. Yeah, here's a little bit from the podcast that we did. It's going to come out tonight on the Paul Begley podcast channel. If you haven't subscribed to that channel, please do that today. Just go to Paul Begley podcast channel. Just type up in that search bar, Paul Begley podcast. go over there. We do interviews every week. Every Tuesday night we go live. So it will premiere. It will go live. There'll be people in the chat room. I'll be in the chat room. Paul Jr. will be in the chat room. It's really, really interesting. Let's take a look at this right now. Here's from the podcast that will air tonight on the Heaven's Gate cult. Yeah, here we go. I forgot where I was supposed to set that up at. Yeah, I think I had it. I just messed up. Yeah, about right there. I think. Unless we have technical difficulty here. Are you serious? All right. That's interesting. Let's try this. We're rolling out the red carpet. All right. Here we go. Hopefully. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are you serious?
We'll go to those, but this is back to BC's documentary here. Just
okay.
Some more context. But yeah, we'll listen to their interviews, which are on YouTube.
Okay. Let's go back to the documentary.
Beings trapped in human bodies, sent to guide others toward salvation. Over time, they refined this belief into a full religious doctrine. Humans were trapped in a corrupted world, and only those who followed T and Do's teachings could evolve into perfected alien beings and board a spaceship to take them to paradise.
What?
By the mid-1970s, T and Do began followers across the United States, often holding public meetings in churches and college campuses. They told their audiences that 2 witnesses, prophesied in the book of Revelation, were currently on Earth, referring to themselves, and that a spaceship would soon arrive to take believers to the next level. Surprisingly, their message resonated with many, especially young adults disillusioned with traditional religion, the Vietnam War, and mainstream society. Around the year 1975, they convinced over 20 people in Oregon to abandon their families and possessions and to join the group. Media attention spiked when those people seemingly vanished overnight. The group, now mobile, adopted a nomadic lifestyle, living under strict aesthetic rules and awaiting contact with alien intelligence. For the next several years, the group, now known as Heaven's Gate, largely disappeared from public view. Members lived in obscurity, often in campgrounds or modest rented homes, cut off from the outside world. Applewhite and Nettles imposed increasingly rigid rules: no sex, no alcohol, no personal relationships. Members took on new names, wore identical clothes, and suppressed all individuality. They viewed the human body as a vehicle and Earth as a prison. Their goal was to transcend this existence and to be exited to the next level, shedding their human containers. Despite these extreme beliefs, members were intelligent, well-mannered, and by all accounts, voluntarily committed to the cause. In 1985, Bonnie Nettles died of liver cancer. This was a pivotal.
We'll stop there because, I mean, it's because we were kind of touching on all that stuff, but Bart, your documentary summarizes it really well, right?
Yeah, it does.
You were blending all of these different elements together, and then you're removing people. So it's really difficult to think because you're getting ready to touch on when Bonnie actually dies. So she wasn't part of the mass suicide at the end because she actually died. But what happened there, though, before we continue, a little bit more context about this, the whole religion almost fell apart when she did die, because I don't think T and Do Re Mi, wherever they were, thought about, what would happen if one of us died, because they were presenting themselves as the two witnesses and
The
these
book of Revelation.
powerful beings and elders, essentially, to their followers. So when she did die, Applewhite had to think of a clever way, or clever enough to convince his followers, well, she didn't die from cancer, which she did die from cancer. Her body actually just wasn't able to hold in her spirit any longer, and she essentially combusted from the inside.
That's just a little sample of tonight's broadcast. It starts at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Paul Begley podcast channel. So you can, I'll be there live in the chat room because this will be premiering. And so I'll be there live in the chat room. Paul Jr. will be there live in the chat room. Heidi might jump in there as well. And we will be with you through this broadcast. This is a very powerful, eye-opening broadcast to this cult. And we call this the Cult Classics. We're going to actually, throughout the rest of the year, periodically on this channel over here at Paul Begley Podcast, we will also later cover Reverend Jim Jones. We'll cover some of the other cults like David Koresh and others. We'll even get into some current modern day cults that are going on right now. So the reason we're doing this is because we're showing you what Jesus said. When Jesus was asked, can you tell me the sign? They said, can you tell us the signs of thy coming and the end of the world? And Jesus said, yeah, you're going to have false Christ and false prophets. And and they will deceive many. And then he says this 3 different times in the same chapter. He talks about all kinds of different things that's going to be to watch out for, but he keeps saying, but these false Christ and false prophets, and then again, false prophets, and then again, false prophets. So he's very concerned about the end time delusion and confusion. And so don't miss this tonight, guys. It starts at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Paul Begley podcast channel here on YouTube, or you can be listening to it everywhere there's podcasts out there, whether it be Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and on and on and on, all over the place. So check it out. The brand new, it's the Paul Begley podcast channel, and become a subscriber and enjoy all these different interviews and podcast presentations. I'll be back with more current world events. Of course, we are in the Pentecost season. You can send your Pentecost offerings, of course, to Paul Begley Prophecies. Send your prayer requests with that. And we will be praying and believing God for the full blessing of the Feast of Pentecost. I'll be back. See you guys at 6 p.m. at the Paul Begley podcast channel.